بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك وعلمنا من لدنك علما ينفعنا في الدين والدنيا يا كريم. أما بعد, Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his blessings of Ramadan, and Alhamdulillah we're back after Eid. And we're trying to go through this section of fiqh. Transactions is huge. SubhanAllah, to cover every aspect of it, it would take us years. That's why, of course, we're doing it in a quick, inshallah ta'ala, speed, in a speedy way. And inshallah ta'ala, after transactions, we get just transactions, and we'll go into more detail when it comes to nikah and other things, inshallah ta'ala. We still have maybe a few more classes left in this section, inshallah ta'ala. So the section we're up to in fiqh is known as al-Ghasb. Al-Ghasb. And anyone who knows Arabic understands that the word Ghasb in Arabic means to basically to unlawfully take something, to take something by force. So it's not stealing, okay? Stealing is when you take something secretly, basically. Something that was protected, you go secretly, you break the protection, you take it. Ghasb is when you openly take something, basically. So I see you sitting there and you've got a nice phone. Bismillah, I grab it and I take it by force. SubhanAllah, Ghasb is something that we find in our day-to-day life. So many different examples of a Ghasb that we take, we'll find that it actually happens a lot in our community without knowing, SubhanAllah, because there's different types of Ghasb. Sometimes, yes, it's taking by force unlawfully. Other times, it's doing something with others' property without permission, basically. That's also a form of Ghasb. So many forms that we study here will be shocked that they happen a lot in our day-to-day life, inshallah ta'ala. I won't give examples because that's going to come in a few minutes, inshallah. We'll read what Abu Shuja radiallahu anhu rahimahu wanted to say, and then inshallah we'll go into the details, inshallah. So Abu Shuja rahimahullah says, فصل ومن غصب مالا لأحد لزمه رده وأرش نقصه وأجرة مثله فإن تلف ضمنه بمثله إن كان له مثل أو بقيمته إن لم يكن له مثل أكثر ما كانت من يوم الغصب إلى يوم التلف.
Wrongfully taken property. Whoever wrongfully takes property is required to return the property compensation for damages and its rental value for the duration of the state. If the property is destroyed, one replaces it with an identical item if one exists. Otherwise, one is liable for its maximum value, not price, from the time it was taken until the date.
Okay, so now when he says property, he means anything that someone possesses, not land, but something that someone possesses. So in the Arabic text, we say malan. So this is wealth, anything that someone owns, whether it's property or not, these rulings apply to. So the rulings of ghasb are mentioned after the rulings of ajar, of loaning. So the last thing we took, sorry, not ajar, not loaning. What's it called? Not ajar. Of lending. You know. So basically, people can lawfully take other people's right with their permission, okay, and give it back, return it. If they don't give it back, they take it, it's going to be buying or selling or gifting, basically. So these things can all occur in day-to-day life. Because it can happen unlawfully, so the author immediately after talking about how to lawfully take someone's right, started with buying and selling, and then he went into lending and borrowing and those things. He's going to now mention unlawfully taking and the rulings that apply. Of course, it's not halal to do so, but if someone does it, what are the rulings that Islamically apply to him? If the person wants to make tawbah, wants to change, there's certain things that he must do also. He can't just make tawbah and that's it. No, there's certain actually, and not even give it back. No, he has to pay for what he did and for the period that he had it and all the other things. So the rulings are mentioned for a clear purpose. And as we mentioned at the beginning of transaction, that Islam strictly respects the individual's ownership. Strictly. So you have full authority on what you own. Full authority. Okay. You know, even if it's something that I don't believe you lawfully own. If you enter a hotel now, okay, and there's alcohol in the fridge, okay, you break the bottle and destroy it, for example, خلاص, leave it, yeah, it's not your property. You don't generally go and destroy other people's property. A lot of people have that mentality, it's haram, it's this. SubhanAllah, there's strict respect to what a person owns in Islam. And that's why our scholars mentioned that a ghasb, that taking someone's property unlawfully, is a major sin. Not a minor sin, a major sin. One of the kaba'ir. One of the major sins in Islam. So it's not only haram. And the interesting thing is that there's many forms of taking something unlawfully that happen every single day. A lot of us might have done it by accident. Okay? So it's a major sin when it's done intentionally. If it's done by accident, you didn't know someone's property took it, then you know it's not haram. But it's a major sin to do ghasb in its different examples. For example, it could be something that, for example, isn't even owned, something not physical, but someone's right. Someone's sitting in a masjid and you force them to get up and you take their place. That's also a type of ghasb. So the respect to a person's rights, the person's ownership is very important. And our scholars mentioned that this includes, like I said, stealing the smallest or forcefully taking the smallest things. Even they say 1 grain of wheat. We know in fiqh that 1 grain of wheat can't be sold. We mentioned that, yeah, that you can't sell. If you came with me to dollar and said, I want to buy a grain of wheat from you, it's not a lawful transaction. Why? Because that has no value to it, basically. It's not a value that people consider anything. But it's haram to unlawfully take. If you go into a shop, I'm gonna you just take a little bit of rice. This is just for the fun of it. Yeah, you might be actually falling into one of the biggest. And like I say, it even includes non-physical matters, like making a person stand up from the spot in the masjid and sitting in their place. This happens a lot in Muslim countries with a lot of masajid, and the famous masajid where there's good masajid in haram. Mashallah, there's people forcing people, even bribing people with money to get up and take their places in the front row or behind the imam. So we have to really understand the priority in Islam. Yeah, in fiqh there's sunnah, there's mustahab things, and there's things that are haram and compulsory that we have to be careful. The definition of ghasb is to take others' belongings or rights without Islamic permission. So Islamic permission means either you're lawfully doing it, okay, or in some cases the judge, the ruler, is allowed to take someone's property that they don't deserve. For example, someone's not paying the zakat, okay, they're not paying zakat. The hakim, the governor, is allowed to go and take the zakat from that person. That's not ghasb, because it's lawfully done. Okay, Allah Ta'ala has made it compulsory that everyone pays zakat. But an example of ghasb would be, they say, if Zayd, for example, so and so, rides the donkey of another person without his permission. So someone has a donkey sitting there, you go and ride it. People do it with their friends all the time. Yeah, I know he's going to allow, and you find that person sometimes gets very offended, it's upset. They wish the person, someone enters another person's house, they take their food or something. If they give you permission, yes, but if you're not sure, you don't know they're giving you permission or not, you don't know if they'll be happy or not, and you take that risk, then it's very dangerous. So that's why Imam Ibn Qasim al-Ghazi, he says that a ghasb is determined in every situation according to what people consider taking control. In the explanation of Abu Shuja. So for example, preventing someone from entering the house would be considered a ghasb. You can't physically take the house away from them, but you can basically take control, or you can block people from entering the house. Basically, you are now controlling the house, because entering the house is the right of the owner. If you're going to sell someone a house, how do you give it to them? By letting them enter. So giving them the keys. Sitting in someone else's car, riding the donkey would be, that would also be considered ghasb. So a person who unlawfully took others' rights, what should they do? Number 1, there's 5 main rules they should do. Number 1, they should immediately return it to its owner. Immediately. The second, not every second that passes by, they're sin. So they have to return it to the owner immediately. Okay. Now, if someone says, no, I'm going to return something more expensive, it happens a lot. You know what? I'm going to take, even now when people do these gestures of love, that I take your thing and I give you something more expensive. I steal it. Yeah. Even in YouTube now, it's something very famous. So if any of the shabab are watching, people are eating in food court, for example, they take the food, eat it, and then they buy them another meal, for example. Yeah. Okay, that isn't allowed. Okay, that's not allowed. It's not. It's not. Yeah, it's something that Islamically is lawful, and Muslims go and copy that. They do it in Muslim countries. They do it also. That's wrong. Yeah, we can't have to, when we copy trends and stuff. We have to make sure that we understand the Islamic rulings around them. So, even if someone was to return 100 times the amount of the item, the person will be very happy and stuff. What you do is haram. If you return 100 times the present, that's okay, and you also have to return either the item, or if you can get the exact same item, if not, the value of the item on top of your, other than your present. That's nothing. It's, unless it's the present is the value of the item, it's a different situation. The second thing, a person on top of that must pay rent for the time the value was taken. So consider yourself renting the item. Okay, from that person, you have to pay rent for that time as well. The third thing, of course, person must repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fifth thing is that the ruler of that area or the governor must punish the person. Which is called as ta'zir. Ta'zir means when there's not an Islamic punishment described. If someone did a sinful act publicly or something, that it needs to be controlled. So the lawyer, the governor of that area must Islamically punish them. It could be, for example, imprisoning them for a while. It could be giving them a small type of hitting that doesn't go against the boundaries of Sharia. It could be anything that the governor feels would stop people doing this act. So he puts punishment there for a person who does this. So these are the 5 things a person must do if they take someone else. Okay. What if the item? This is all if the item is safe. If you return the item, if the items hasn't been damaged. Okay. What if the item is damaged totally or is affected? What are the rules? So, if the item was destroyed, so totally destroyed, you can't give it back. For example, you took someone's lunch and you ate it, can't return it. So, if that item is considered wealth, it has a ruling. If it's not considered Islamically wealth, something that we don't consider that has a value in Islam. We know that some things we can own, but it doesn't have a value, like having a dog, for example. It's najis, so we can't buy and sell, but you can own it. Okay? Or alcohol that was kept to make vinegar. Alcohol that was kept to make vinegar, it's respectful, it's something that is considered wealth, but you still can't buy and sell alcohol because it's najis. A person in this case is sinful, okay? But there's nothing to be returned because these items can't be given any value. The person has to make tawbah, has to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yes, it would be good if you give them a present or something like that. But Islamically, we can't give a value for that thing. Okay. Most cases, the item will have a value. So if the item that has a value was damaged and not destroyed, the item must be returned, and the amount that was damaged, so the difference between the item when it's complete and when it's damaged, okay, you calculate that difference, must be given back to the person with addition to the rent that we said, rent for the time that it was taken. And the only thing you don't have to pay for is the difference in inflation of price that happens. Basically, you stole a phone when it was worth how much money, then the price changed. That difference in inflation doesn't need to be paid, but the difference in price, how much it would be worth if it was correct or not, needs to be paid. If the item was destroyed totally, okay, then it depends if the item has a value that can be compensated for, or if the item has something that is exactly the same. And we'll get to that in the next slide, inshallah. So things that need to be compensated for. If the item has another item that is 100% the same, has not one difference in it. For example, a kilo of what could we say? Huh? Okay, it could be rice, gold, whatever. Even today, many other things. Something that has 100% the same ingredients, details, weight, and everything. Okay. In fiqh, this is called mithli. Mithli means that it has other copies of it. Okay. The exact same item needs to be returned. In fiqh, the scholars would consider mithli, like I said, only a few items would be mithli. But today, the scholars say now most items today that are bought in proper organizations and companies would have examples. So a phone would have mithli, for example. Okay, if you can buy an iPhone in America, you can buy it in Australia, it will have the exact same details. Then that could also be returned exactly the same, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. If the item doesn't have an identical copy, then it's called mutaqawwam. So it has a value. Okay. You have to look at the highest price it could be sold for and give that back. And these rulings include if the person themselves, okay, didn't destroy the items, but someone else destroyed it while you had taken it. For example, you took someone's item and then it got destroyed by itself, or rain came and destroyed it. Okay, you also have to pay for that. So these are the rulings of al-ghasb, of taking something unlawfully in Sharia. I think that's the main rulings that everyone needs to be aware of, inshallah ta'ala. They're pretty straightforward. Yes,
let's say iPhone, old iPhone, do you return the new iPhone?
No. Okay. So we're saying like this iPhone 7 for iPhone 10, for example?
No, it's the iPhone 7, possibly taken. Do you give it a brand new iPhone 7 or a used one?
Okay. If you're going to get if the second-hand one going to have the exact same details, okay, is it going to be exactly the same? Could you? Maybe not. Yes, you have to give something identical. So
4 or 5.
You should give something identical, because what's happening is that you're replacing. Okay, you're not compensating. Compensating is a different. You're replacing. So I'm giving you. If the person says, "Give me something higher," I forgive you. It's a different story. Okay, but if now Islamically, the ruler, if there's a hakim there, will tell you give something identical. Okay, that's why generally the fuqaha, they would only say that identical means items that have no difference between them. Okay, items, most of the things that you deal with in riba and stuff, things that are created from the ground, basically, things that we know exact percentage of. But now today, they said things that are created in a company or something, then that is what can be. Okay, after that, because we don't have much time, I'm trying to get through quite a bit today, inshallah. We'll try to keep most of the questions to the end, inshallah. Abu Shuja, after he's talking about something called shuf'a. Okay. What is shuf'a? We'll read and then we'll explain, inshallah ta'ala. He says, فصل والشفعة واجبة بالخلطة دون الجوار فيما ينقسم دون ما لا ينقسم وفي كل ما لا ينقل من الأرض وغيره بالثمن الذي وقع عليه البيع وهي على الفور، فإن أخرها مع القدرة عليها بطلت. وإذا تزوج امرأة على شخص أخذه الشفيع بمهر المثل وإن كان الشفعاء جماعة استحقوها على قدر الأملاك.
Preemption is an intrinsic right when A, there is joint ownership but not in neighboring property. B, in things that retain their original divided, not in things that do not. C, in things that cannot be transported, such as real estate and others. D, or the agreed upon third right. Preemption must be declared immediately. It is void when one delays, even though one is able to preempt. If one marries a woman and her agreed upon marriage is a parcel of land that a foreigner preempts, the foreigner must pay her the amount similar to woman received. If preemption is opted for by a group, the entitlement of each is in proportion to their.
Okay. There's a famous hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba says, Prophet ﷺ قضى بالشفعة في كل ما لم يقسم. Prophet ﷺ declared something called shuf'a. Shuf'a, okay, it comes from shafa'a. Shafa'a in Arabic means intercession. Okay, you intercede for someone. You take your right by having the authority or the right to do so. So he translated here as preemption. Basically, the fuqaha in different madhahib, they understood this hadith differently. Imam Shafi'i says that the meaning of this is that a few people own the same item. It's owned together. There's a joint ownership. Okay, one of the people sells their parts. Okay, so the other person will now be a co-owner with someone else. They might not like that person. That person might be harmful to them. So they have the choice to buy that other person's share and pay them. Second owner, basically. That's how simple it is, inshallah. According to Shafi'i, that's it. Other madahib say it also includes, basically, if there is a neighbor living next to someone and you don't like that neighbor and there's someone else buys the neighbor's house, you have the right to buy their house off them. According to Shafi'i, that is not included in the hadith. We'll get to that, inshallah. So, the author mentions these rulings after ghasb, after wrongfully taken property, because in this case, you're taking someone else's property forcefully in a lawful manner. Okay, shufa in Arabic means basically to put two things together or to intercede. And both of them, of course, make sense when you come to understand the meaning of shufa in this part of fiqh. In the definition of fuqaha, it is the right of ownership that belongs to an old partner instead of the new partner. The right of ownership that belongs to an old partner instead of a new partner. So there's a shared ownership. That's okay. Now, shufa has 4 elements to it, or 4 pillars, 4 basically particles to it. The first one is the partner selling their rights. Okay, someone who's an owner with another person, a co-owner, they sell their part. The other part to it is the person claiming their right, the second partner, and then the item being sold, and the person who is buying. These are the 4 components that we'll be studying in this section. Okay, the person claiming their rights. Okay, so the person who is selling, what are their conditions? They're an owner and they sell to the person. It's pretty clear, pretty straightforward. Okay, but a person claiming their right has a bit of details that you have to understand. This person must be a partner in the wealth that is being sold. It's pretty clear. For example, 2 people own a house together, and one of them wants to sell their part. The item owned, of course, must be joint wealth, and the scholars say that the individual's position can't be identified. It's not split in half. It's joint. It's shared. It's something that we can't tell who owns what. In the Shafi'i madhab, like I said, shufa is not a right of neighbors or people who have wealth that is next to each other. It has to be joint totally, something you can't separate. The item that is being claimed, the item that is being sold, what are the conditions of it? It must be something that cannot be split into halves. Okay? Can't be split into halves. Sorry, that can be, not cannot be, can be. It's something that can be. So basically, a large land that can be cut in half. I'm not going to sell you 5 centimeters of land, for example, and split in half. Or a large room that can be split into some. It must be something that cannot be removed and changed from place to place. So you can't, there's no shufa in an animal or in a piece of food. It has to be land or something that is stable. Okay, land or something that's stable. So, like I said, land, your house, something like that. But not something that can be moved, not physical items. So most things out there, there's no shufa in. Most items that we buy and sell, there's no shufa in. It's only regarding land and houses and stuff like that. That's it. So a joint ownership in a land or a house, that is where a person can claim their right and take the new owner's part by paying them. Okay. Also, another condition is that it must be owned through a transaction. If it was owned through a gift, or someone inherited it, then there's no right to shufa. So basically, this piece of land has been owned through a person putting in effort. Okay, when effort's put in, it gives you a different value. different. The effect that happens by the changing of ownership is different, basically. Okay. If that's the case, so if the land that person bought, okay, and there's a joint ownership, the other side wants to sell, the person claiming the right, shuf'a, okay, must pay the new owner for his percentage. The new owner can't lose anything. Now, the second thing is it must be done immediately as soon as the new owner discovers and finds out that the old owner sold his part. He has to immediately go and buy the new owner's part. You can't just sit there for a week or two and then go and say, Allah, I want to buy your part. The person's already, he's settled down and he's set up. So in that case, no, there's no shuf'a. Shuf'a is very specific in the Shafi'i madhab. It can only be done in very specific situations where there's minimal harm happening to the new owner. Okay. So example they say of shuf'a is that the Zayd and Amr. Okay. So Zayd and Amr own a house together. So Zayd decides to sell his part of the house to Bakr, to someone called Bakr. Zayd and Amr own a house. Zayd sells his part to Bakr. So Amr says to Bakr, أخذت حصتك بالشفعة. I take your part through the right of shuf'a. Then خلاص, he pays him for his part.
And the hakim was
of course, has to add that. So if a person doesn't agree, then the hakim if the new owner, no, the new owner can't decide he doesn't want to. خلاص, it's an Islamic right that the old owner has. So that's what's the point? If he can decide, then there will be no point of shuf'a. Anyone can decide that I don't want, I want to buy one. Anyone can come and buy land from anyone. Yeah. The difference here is that the right, the old owner has a right. He can force the new owner to sell it to him, basically. That's what it is.
Forgive my ignorance. So in places like this, Islamic countries, do you see this happen?
It exists in the local system. It exists.
Yeah.
Do people use it? It's pretty hard to in modern day situations. It's pretty hard sometimes to actually do it, but it does exist. Yani, in the local system, especially let's just say in Saudi and maybe in Oman, in they have a legal system, especially when it comes to buying and selling, that goes according to the books of fiqh. Sometimes you find that maybe they might not follow a certain madhab, or they might mix up, or it depends on the judge, and there'll be a lot of complications that happen. But yes, it does exist. It exists. Allahu alam, to what extent people act upon it, and also most people, they're not going to go by these rulings. They're going to just make up a lie and take whatever right they want and khalas. Or they'll force a person not to do it by setting up some plan. But in Islam, it exists anyway. It exists. Okay. After that, the author goes into another section of fiqh called al-qiram. Okay. The Sheikh Musa, he translated as financing a profit-sharing venture. Okay. So Abu Shuja rahimahullah says, والقراض للقراض 4 شرائط. أن يكون على ناض من الدراهم والدنانير، وأن يأذن رب المال للعامل في التصرف مطلقا أو فيما لا ينقطع وجوده غالبا، وأن يشترط له جزءا معلوما من الربح، وأن لا يقدر بمدة، ولا ضمان على العامل إلا بعدوان، وإذا حصل ربح وخسران جبر الخسران بالربح.
Financing profit sharing ventures is permissible under 4 conditions. A, the contract is based on gold or silver currency. B, the financier permits the worker to trade that is unrestricted or restricted to things typically available. C, the financier stipulates for the worker a known portion of the profit. D, contract is not limited to a fixed duration. The worker is not liable except when there is transgression. If there is both profit and loss, the loss is compensated by the.
Okay, do you remember in fiqh when we talked sharika, which is basically what do you say sharika was? Translation of it? It's a partnership. Yes, partnership. And we said in the Shafi'i madhab, partnership has strict conditions. Yeah. How does it work? It has to be 2 sides putting in money, both of them, and then both working and giving each other permission to do whatever they want to use each other's right. So it's basically just letting someone else use your money and you just giving you permission. Now, there's an example or a type of transaction that some people might consider to be partnership. It's not called partnership in the Shafi'i madhab. It's called Qiradh, which means that it's a different type of partnership. Basically, one side has money and they give to the other person to basically trade with. Okay, so someone is giving other person money to trade with. Okay, it's similar to renting. It's similar to it's similar to many other. These details that we're going to mention, they are called Qiradh, which is a separate section. Definition of Qiradh is an owner authorizing another person to trade with his money, and the profits are split between them. The profits are then split between them. So someone gives another person money, yalla, trade, whatever you make, this percentage is for me and this percentage is for you. There's a certain percentage that is agreed upon for each side. Okay, that is a lawful transaction in Sharia. So both sides, of course, as we always take, must be Islamically allowed, permitted to work, to act with this money. So they can't be the same conditions we say. They can't be a little kid. They can't be someone who's not allowed to work, and all the other conditions. Okay, the work must only be done by the second person, the authorized person. Okay. If they make a condition that the owner does some work as well, it's not valid. Why? It has in the Shafi'i method. Once the owner goes in and he puts in work, now the percentage isn't clear. Now we don't know how much you work. So it's basically similar to you're renting the person and giving them a percentage in as their reward. But when two sides are working, they have to both put in the money. So it's different. Okay. Now, as we read, Qiradh originally can only be done with gold and silver. Okay, gold and silver. Now we had a big discussion. Does modern day currency have the same rulings of gold and silver or not? If we say it has the same rulings, then inshallah, we could consider that it could be used. If not, there might be an issue with it. As according to the madhab, there might be a possibility that it's not allowed to use it. Although Ibn Hajar mentions that when money is treated exactly like gold and silver, then it takes its place in all the rulings. And whether we look at this or not, there are other things inside the madhab that it's permissible to do it with other than gold and silver. So, alhamdulillah, there's flexibility in fiqh to do this kind of transaction with other than gold and silver. But it should be done with strict paying caution to the rulings, inshallah. Now, the exact amount of money given in trade must be. So we say, I am giving you $1,000, okay, to trade with as Qiradh or whatever the definition of Qiradh was. I forgot it. In the English, profit sharing. So I give you this amount of money to go and trade in profit sharing, and 50% will be for me, 50% for you, or 60% for me, 30% for you. Okay. The responsibility of the person authorized, person who is buying and selling, okay, the person, not the owner, the other person, must be to trade with the wealth. Okay, so the person is trying to make profit. It can't be, yalla, I'm just giving you money and just sell things. No, it has to be trade. It has to be buying and selling. It has to be making, like trying to make a profit. Trade must not be limited to a certain time. You don't say, I'm going to give you this money in Qiradh for a week. Why? You don't know when the person will make profit. You don't know how the market's going to be. So it has to be open. So in Arabic, they say you can't say qaradtuka sana. You can't say I'm doing a Qiradh partnership with you for 1 year. No, you can just say qaradtuka. So I'm giving you $1,000 to trade with, and the percentage will be between us. But you can't say for a year, for example. The owner can also cannot limit the authorized person on buying one specific item. You can't say, I'm giving you 1,000, buy this. Okay, buy this. I know it looks very nice. You're probably all eyeing it. Okay. So I'm giving you $1,000 to buy and trade to buy this, and no, it has to be open. So the person has to basically give the money, and the person does their best to make profit. So it's opened. Basically, you're giving them the chance to do their best, and that's how profit is made in trade. The profit must then be split between them with a certain percentage for each one. It's not permissible for the owner to say, I want 2,000 versus for you. This happens all the time. Yeah, just give me 2,000. Whatever you make on top of that, it's up to you. So you want to make 10,000, 30,000, 1,000, it's up to you. I want this percentage. I want you to work until you get me this percentage, and then after that, the rest is for you. That is not permissible. That's haram, because we don't know. The person might make something, might not make something. Yeah, Islamically, it has to be a percentage. So basically the loss is shared between them, and also the gain is shared between them. So it's something that we totally agree upon. There's no cheating that happens. There's no volume that happens in this transaction. Okay. Superannuation, wallahi, how it works, I don't really understand how it works. Every country is different. But look, I know that many scholars have given fatwa that it's permissible the way it works. So inshallah, we hope yes, obviously permissible things. But yeah, I haven't looked into it because in one-day transactions, when you look into them, there's always an issue. So I just like to stay away from it. Inshallah, when I retire, then I'll look into it. Inshallah. I don't like how it works. I don't know how it works. When I came to Australia, I was just working, and then they said like, this much is going out of tax, and then where's the rest of the money? They said no, it's going to super. They give it back to you when you retire. So I thought they were just taking money, give it back to me, and saving it for me. I said okay, and they said no, they trade with it basically. So I didn't know how it works. Yes, it's very interesting, Yani. But one thing that was out of my understanding of super is that we have to pay zakat when you get it back. When you get it back, and in the Shafi'i madhab, we have to pay zakat for every single year that passed. Yeah. So yeah, I believe some Hanafi scholars have given fatwa that you only pay zakat for 1 year. For 1 year, so we could take that opinion and then take just the money. So just zakat, basically, you count how much zakat is, and then yeah. Anyway, modern day transactions is a whole other kind of worms. SubhanAllah, it's very interesting. The scholars today they look for any opinion just to find to say it's permissible because everyone's into these transactions and everyone's life is SubhanAllah. Alhamdulillah, if someone gives you permission to use the money, it's not as even if the transaction is not lawful, 100%. If there's permission, then as Imam Ghazali said, sometimes the transaction might be unlawful, but the permission is there for you to use the outcome of it. Then it's not as big as an issue, but still it's something that we should try to make as close as we can to the guidelines that we study. Okay, after that, Imam Shuja goes into another section which is similar to that for ownership or that renting that happens, and it's known as al-Musaqah, watering crops for a portion of them. Watering crops for a portion of them. It's known as al-Musaqah. Saqi in Arabic means to give someone something to drink. So saqi al-zara means to water the plants. He says, فصل والمساقة جائزة على النخل والكرم على النخل والكرم ولها not كرم in Arabic is what? What does it mean? كرم, yes. Grapes. ولها شرطان. أحدهما أن يقدر the Prophet says the heart of a Muslim is like a grape. أحدهما أن يقدر بمدة معلومة والثاني أن يعين للعامل جزءا معلوما من الثمرة ثم العمل فيها على ضربين عمل يعود نفعه على الثمرة فهو على العامل وعمل يعود نفعه على الأرض فهو على رب المال.
respect to work and crops, work falls under two categories. Number one, work, the benefit of which return to the crops is required from the worker. And number two, work, the benefit of which returns to the land, it is required from the owner.
Okay. There are three different transactions in fiqh when it comes into plants. Not planning, planting, okay? And taking care of the plants. Okay? Three different transactions. The first one is musaqah, which is this one, which means to agree with someone to take care of your trees, and they receive a percentage of the produce in exchange. The second one is called al-muzara'ah, okay, which means to agree with someone to plant the seeds and take care of them, and the produce is then divided between them with the seeds being provided from the land owner. So I give you seeds and I tell you plant them and take care of them, and then the produce will be for you. The third is known as mukhabara, which means that someone comes with the seeds, they bring seeds with them, they plant it, and then in my ground, in my place, and then part of the percentage will be theirs in return. So musaqah, the trees are already there. Muzara'a, the seeds are provided by me and the person plants them. Mukhabara, the person brings the seeds. Okay, the first one, al-musaqah, is permissible, as we mentioned, with dates and grapes. Only. That's it. Okay? Dates and grapes. The second one is originally not permissible. Okay? Unless it happens ضمنا تبعا, let's say. So basically, it happens underneath the second one. I give you the trees, the land, and then with that, I add to that basically that you plant the seeds and I give you the seeds, then it would be permissible. But generally, originally, it's not permissible to do so. To just give someone a seed and tell them to plant it, it's not permissible. Mukhabara, the last one, is not allowed at all. You bring your seeds, you plant them in my land, then you get percentage of the crops. That's not permissible. In the Shafi'i method, the only thing permissible is al-musaqah. Why? All of these transactions have a percentage of uncertainty. All these transactions, there's a percentage of this part that's not known, basically. So in these kind of transactions, generally the fuqaha, they close the door and they only allow specific transactions that were permitted in the Sharia from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, when he opened Khaybar, next to Medina, Khaybar, yeah, the big land of Khaybar. Khaybar was basically the area where they produced the most dates. He allowed them to stay and take care of the dates with a certain percentage that comes from that. He gives them a certain percentage in return, and then he takes the rest. Okay, and that was his condition. So the hadith came in grapes and so in dates and grapes in fiqh, you just take the same ruling. But other than that, it wasn't mentioned. So the scholars in the Shafi'i method, they don't allow it. The hadith is the hadith of Ibn Umar. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عامل أهل خيبر بالشطر ما يخرج منها من ثمر أو زرع. صلى الله عليه وسلم made a deal with the people of Khaybar for half what is produced from it, whether fruits or crops. So dates would be the main source, and then crops could be something that happens with the dates, but the main contract is regarding the dates, basically. No, it's a percentage, with a percentage. All the things agreed upon. Yeah, like we said in the one. So the owner could take 60%, for example, and then give you 30 or 40% in return. So there are two conditions for musaqah to be legitimate, which is basically watering grape or date trees and getting a percentage in return. The first one is for the type of work expected from the worker to be understood from both sides. So what I expect from you to do to get some dates in return. So if a person says to the worker, for example, water these trees and take care of these date trees for half the produce, okay, it's only significant if the expectations are understood from what people are used to. Everyone knows that this kind of transaction means that there's A, B, C that is expected from me. Khalas. Okay. If it's not known, then I have to specify. Okay. The worker generally needs to take care of, once this agreement is done, he has to take care of every aspect of these trees that is ongoing. Okay. So removing the weeds, taking care of the plant, making sure that water reaches them. There might be something preventing the water. Okay. Digging, if the wells in the land get destroyed or dry, digging new wells. If you need new wells, the water's all finished, has to go and dig a new well. This is all the job of the worker. So anything that originally was taken care of but needs to be renewed and done again, it's on the worker. Anything that is old, anything that has to be done once, is the responsibility of the owner. For example, things that are not repeating, like building a wall around the property, digging the original well of the property or water body. Those things are all the job of the owner. So the land has to be ready and set up. Then anything after that that needs to be renewed is the job of the worker. That's how it works. And then he takes a percentage. Okay. The contract here must be specified to a date. Not like the one before. It has to be specified to a date. Why? Because we know with fruit and things, they usually every year or everything, there would be produce that comes out of it. And that date has to be a date that usually the fruit would grow in. For example, we know that some trees every year they would produce once. So we can't say, in winter, you can't say, I'm going to do Musaqah for you for 1 month. Why? It's going to take at least 6 months for the fruit to grow. Okay. If the transaction is done and there's fruit there already in the tree, small little dates already grown, the fruit must not be ripe before the transaction. If the dates are ripe, ready, sitting there, you can't do a transaction like that, because what's the point? What do you do? You're not growing the fruit. Okay. So whether the fruit is there or not, it can't be ripe. So there might be no fruit on the trees, there might be fruit that's not ripe, that's just beginning to grow. Then the transaction can be done. The percentage of each side must be agreed upon, and the person working must have full access to the trees they're working on. If I say I'm doing Musaqah with you and then I prevent you from entering the land, then it doesn't work. So these are the conditions of Musaqah. Musaqah, like I said, because it's only with dates and grapes, it's not done much today. But in countries like Saudi, like I guess maybe Iraq and other countries that have date produce, yes, it is a lot. It happens a lot. I believe so, yes. Our madhab when it comes to transactions is very specific.
But if you still need workers,
yeah,
you can pay them.
You can pay them. Yeah. Yes, you pay them, but not this type of transaction. So it's a separate agreement, basically. Yeah, you're hiring. So the next section in fiqh is hiring. Ajar. Next section in fiqh is coming up into next class, inshallah. We won't have time for today. Is ajar, or is hiring, and that is totally different. That's a very wide section of fiqh where most things are allowed. You're hiring a person's time and work for an known outcome. It doesn't have to be money. It could be anything else, yeah. But it's something. But plan this, your work on this tree, okay? Basically, is rewarded by the outcome of that tree. That is something that has a lot of uncertainty in it, and that's why it's a specific contract. It's the conditions of rather. Yes. Yes. It depends on what you're doing. You can rent that out, but now it could fall into mukhabara sometimes, where they're coming with their own crops and getting them. So that wouldn't be so. But you can rent the land to people. Yes, you can rent your land to people, but then it depends on how the transaction and the wording of the transaction. For the Shafi'i method, it's really the wording of the transaction that's an issue. There's no wording, and you're just getting 50% land. It's not a big issue. But the wording of the transaction, the agreement, is always the issue. The agreement, the conditions. Even when it comes to nikah, some types of nikah that are unlawful, like putting condition that a person, I don't know, remarries the other person later on or something like that. That's only haram if it's an agreement. But if it's not an agreement, if it's just something in your mind, it's not haram. So the agreement is always what we look for, because that's what the judge would use to hold people accountable. So a question here says, is the difference between musaqah and musara'a only that the owner of the trees planted the trees himself? So muzara'a, in muzara'a there is planting, okay, and the owner, it gives the person seeds and they plant. In mukhabara there is seeds that come with the work themselves. In musaqah it's generally that the trees are already there, so these are trees of the owner, and then the person works and takes care of the trees. Right. Okay, time's up, inshallah. So next class, inshallah, we'll start with al-ajar, and we might have 1 or 2 more classes. I hope, probably not 3, until we get to nikah, inshallah. So we'll be taking next class a lot of rulings regarding renting and stuff. And when we get up to the book of fara'id, of inheritance, the book of inheritance in Abu Shuja is very short. So we'll just read through it, inshallah, and give small commenting. We won't go into inheritance, needs a separate class, inshallah, in the future, where we'll go into we'll write this, put the schedules down, and we'll write percentages, and it's a lot of maths into that. So that's separate science that's studied. In Abu Shuja, he just mentions the percentages that everyone deserves. This person deserves this percentage. How to give it to them, the calculations, that's a different science that can be taken in class, but it's better for a larger book that goes into the detail, inshallah. And then after that, nikah is a whole new section of fiqh that, inshallah, will be very beneficial. Inshallah.
Prophet sharing the prophet's 10%, is the loss of 10%?
Prophet sharing, because the wording in Arabic, which one are you talking about?
Is it Qiradh?
Qiradh. Okay. So in Qiradh, I give you money and you go and trade it. Yes. So this one, the second last one we took. Yes.
The prophet just said 50 is the loss.
So the answer's on the screen. What does he say? But the worker is not eligible except when there's a transgression. So when you destroy the thing, and if there is a profit and loss, the loss is compensated by the profit. So if you lose, is it your fault? If you're the one who's trading, it's not your fault. Why? Because it happens in trade. So the person is giving you permission to trade. It's not your fault. But if you go and destroy the product, okay, you're the one who destroys it, then you're accountable. Then you have to compensate that, basically.
Finance takes more risk than the
yes, but because that's easier for the judge to basically to oversee, then that takes like priority in the method. طيب إن شاء الله نستطيع بإذن الله. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا وأكرمكم الله. And inshallah we meet in 2 weeks time, inshallah ta'ala, for the next class.